the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. I have to pretend like, oh God, well, crazy that we're in front of this.
Wait, how often are you in line for the Snow White ride?
I'm a narcissist.
Things have become increasingly intense for Rachel Zegler, who's facing a massive amount of criticism following the release of Disney's live-action Snow White. The film has been met with backlash from both critics and fans, with many questioning everything from the story to the casting choices. But it's Rachel's emotional response that's truly grabbing attention. In a tearful moment, the actress opened up about how people have directed their hate toward her, accusing some of being racist because she is Latina and took on the role of Snow White. According to Rachel, many are refusing to let the film succeed because of her race, and she's been vocal about the racism she's faced in the aftermath. It's been a tough journey for the actress, especially since she feels like she's being unfairly targeted for something beyond her control. So, what's really going on here? Let's break down the drama surrounding Snow White, the accusations of racism, and Rachel's emotional breakdown as the pressure continues to build. Before we get into it, make sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to never miss out on any new content. It's free and helps us tremendously. Rachel Zegler's name is everywhere right now. The West Side Story star found herself at the center of all the internet drama and Hollywood gossip after her latest film, Snow White, flopped at the box office. The numbers are pretty rough. The movie made only $43 million domestically and $87 million globally during its opening weekend. Considering it reportedly cost at least $350 million to produce and market, those numbers are a massive disappointment. It's safe to say the film's performance hasn't been what anyone was hoping for, and Rachel has become the face of this fiasco. What's crazy is that when the movie was first announced, there was so much hype surrounding it, but now Rachel's name is being tossed around in conversations more about the film's failure than her talent. There's a lot of buzz online, and unfortunately, not all of it is positive. People are weighing in, and it's clear that this box office flop has turned into a much bigger story than anyone anticipated. But here's the thing. The more people try to blame her for the movie's failure, the more it seems like they're doing the opposite of what they intended. As all the details about the film's struggles come out, more and more people are starting to see Rachel in a different light. In fact, to a lot of observers, she's actually coming out looking better and better. It's almost like the more they try to drag her down, the more they end up highlighting her resilience and talent. Rachel Zegler's troubles with Snow White started long before the film ever hit theaters. On March 21st, 2021, when her casting was first announced, things started to go downhill fast. Instead of excitement or support, she found herself facing a wave of racism and vitriol, particularly from some conservative-leaning Disney fans who were upset that a Latina actress had been chosen to play the iconic character of Snow White. The backlash was intense, with many people questioning the decision and, unfortunately, attacking Rachel personally. The internet exploded faster than Cinderella's carriage at midnight when the first details about Rachel playing Snow White were revealed. The backlash was immediate and ugly. Why?
Well, some people were absolutely not having it. They pointed out that Snow White's name, taken from the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, literally refers to her skin being as white as snow, a detail tied to the character for decades. And then here comes Rachel, with her Colombian and Polish heritage, stepping into a role that had historically been depicted as the epitome of the pale-skinned princess. The new twist in Snow White's story was that in this version of the film, Snow White is called Snow White not because of her skin, but because she and her family survive a snowstorm, marking her resilience. Still, the internet wasn't having it. Some were all for the new representation, while others felt like the essence of the character was being betrayed. People who loved the original, traditional take on Snow White were furious, and this set off a whirlwind of opinions, debates, and heated arguments online. One person wrote, "The Rachel Zegler controversy is literally just that she's Latina," and said that the original Snow White is a little dated. Disney's mission to throw all of their POC employees under the bus continues. But Rachel wasn't about to sit back and take all that criticism without a fight. She came out swinging, defending her role and the film. She made it clear that Snow White is a fairy tale, a story that belongs to everyone, regardless of race. Rachel pointed out that the character has been loved in Spanish-speaking countries for years, and that bringing a fresh perspective to the role should be something to celebrate, not criticize. You'd think that would cool things down a bit, but nope, if anything, it made things worse. The real spark that set the traditionalists off came when Rachel took her next step, a move that sent the backlash into full meltdown mode. Things got even more complicated when Zegler, who's never been one to shy away from speaking her mind, called out the film's ancient source material, calling the classic fairy tale weird, and revealing that the remake would be taking a different approach. This didn't sit well with a lot of people who were expecting a more traditional take on the story. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any messier, Rachel publicly expressed her solidarity with Palestine in the wake of the war in Gaza, which sparked even more controversy. All of these factors piled up, making the lead-up to the film's release an absolute storm for Zegler. It wasn't just about playing Snow White anymore. It had become a tangled web of race, politics, and public perception. The combination of all these controversies before the movie even hit the box office ensured that Snow White wasn't just another Disney remake. It was a full-blown cultural moment, with Rachel at the center of it all. Rachel's support for Palestine led to even more backlash, with people accusing her of being politically divisive. That reportedly was the straw that broke Disney's back. According to Tatiana Siegel, Variety's executive editor of film and media, Snow White producer Mark Platt flew to New York to have a serious conversation with Rachel about the consequences of a tweet she posted thanking fans for watching the film's first trailer. In the tweet, Zegler included the words, "And always remember, free Palestine." While her message was a personal expression of solidarity, it sparked a huge wave of backlash, particularly from those who felt it was too political for a film that was supposed to be a lighthearted Disney remake. The tweet seemed to be the tipping point for Disney, who were already dealing with a lot of controversy surrounding the film. Mark Platt's trip to New York made it clear that the studio was concerned about the impact Rachel's personal views were having on the movie's reception, especially with all the pressures building around the film's release. It wasn't just about the casting or the approach to the fairy tale anymore. It was about how public statements were potentially jeopardizing the movie's success. What followed was a serious conversation between Zegler and the producer, as Disney weighed the ramifications of the situation. The whole thing seemed like a last-ditch effort to try and control the narrative around the film before it hit theaters. The actress, whose relationship with the studio had begun to unravel in 2022 during a contentious West Side Story Awards season campaign, continued to stand her ground, and the post remained. According to Siegel's report, things escalated quickly after Rachel's tweet, and Disney found themselves in a tough position. They were reportedly forced to pay for additional security for Snow White star Gal Gadot, an Israeli actress who had expressed support for her country following the October 7th attacks. This was a direct result of the fallout from Zegler's tweet about Palestine. It seemed like Disney was caught in the middle of a cultural and political storm and needed to take drastic steps to protect their stars. Some were outraged over how Disney made this a huge deal. One person wrote on X, trying to blame Rachel Zegler's humanity for Snow White flopping instead of the fact they hired the worst actress in the history of mankind is quite a move. Another added, also, it was just a bad movie. Rachel was excellent in it, but like almost every other Disney remake, it was all around terrible. They could have cast anyone as Snow White, and it still would have flopped. But it didn't stop there. Disney also hired a social media guru to carefully vet all of Zegler's posts, particularly after she made headlines for disparaging Donald Trump in response to his 2024 re-election campaign. It was clear from these actions that Disney was growing increasingly concerned about Zegler's outspoken nature and the potential damage her personal opinions could do to the film and the studio's image. The fact that they hired a specialist to monitor her social media showed how much of a liability they viewed her as, and not just any liability, but a costly one. With all this drama surrounding her and the film's release, it became evident that Disney wasn't just worried about Snow White's box office performance, but also the public image of everyone involved. By the time Snow White finally premiered, it was clear that Disney was doubling down on distancing itself from Rachel Zegler. They seemed to be trying to shift the focus away from her as much as possible, and the premiere was a perfect example of that. The event was scaled down significantly, held in the afternoon, and closed off to the press, something that wasn't the norm for major Disney films. While a source close to the studio claimed this was just standard procedure for Disney's family films, it was hard to ignore the fact that Moana 2, just a few months earlier, had been given a much more traditional, glitzy premiere. This stark difference in treatment raised a lot of eyebrows. Behind the scenes, there were also whispers about Disney's unhappiness with Zegler's performance or her public persona, with one anonymous source from another studio telling Vulture ahead of the premiere, "The reality is Rachel Zegler should not be playing Snow White." It seemed like Disney wasn't just trying to handle the film's release quietly. They were actively distancing themselves from their leading lady, which only added to the growing tension and drama surrounding the entire project. The whole situation made it clear that despite all the attention on Snow White, Rachel Zegler was now being treated as a bit of a liability. After all of that, things got so heated online that some even compared Rachel Zegler to Gina Carano, the actress fired from The Mandalorian for her own controversial political views. After about a week of the internet tearing into her, Rachel did what most celebrities in hot water do. She issued an apology. But did it do the trick? Let's break it down. In her apology, Rachel admitted that her emotions got the best of her and that she regretted contributing to the negative discourse. She threw in a little, "We need to respect differing opinions" line and promised to be more positive moving forward. But was that enough to calm the storm? Well, not exactly. Some fans appreciated that she took responsibility, but others were skeptical. They saw the apology as a classic PR move, a way to do damage control after realizing Disney wasn't going to have her back in this whole situation. Speaking of Disney, it was clear they were doing everything they could to stay out of the mess. While Rachel was out there taking the heat, the Mouse House seemed to be sitting back, hoping the fire would burn out on its own. They weren't exactly rushing to publicly support her, and that definitely didn't help the situation. So, while Rachel tried to smooth things over with her apology, it's safe to say not everyone was buying it, and Disney wasn't about to step in and make things right.